My sister spiked my drink, so I switched glasses with her husband instead. I never thought I'd say something like that, but here we are. My name's Mara Jennings. I'm 32, and I've spent most of my life living in my sister's shadow. Elena, my younger sister, has always been the favorite, the pretty one, the bold one, the kind of person who walks into a room and makes everyone notice her. She knows it too, and she's never been shy about reminding me. I've always been the quiet one, the one who keeps the peace. Elena's husband, Grant, is a smooth-talking man with a smile that makes people forget he's a little too confident for his own good. My husband, Tyler, is the complete opposite, calm, gentle, and patient. We often joked about how our marriages were mirror images of each other. I thought those jokes meant something harmless, just family teasing. But that night at Elena's house, I realized how wrong I was. She invited us for dinner. Nothing special, just a weekend get-together. Her house looked like something out of a magazine, perfectly decorated, soft music playing, the smell of steak and rosemary filling the air. Elena greeted me with a hug that lasted a second too long, all perfume and fake warmth. "You look great, Mara," she said, eyes flicking down my plain dress. "I love how you always keep things simple." That was Elena's way of calling me boring. I smiled and thanked her anyway. Dinner started out fine. Grant poured the wine, Tyler made small talk, and Elena kept refilling my glass. Every time I took a sip, she'd reach for the bottle again. "You don't drink enough, Mara," she laughed. "You're always so uptight." Her tone was light, but something in her smile felt sharp. I laughed it off, trying not to let it get to me. Halfway through dinner, she made another comment. Something about how Tyler must be a saint to handle someone so careful. The table went quiet for a moment before Grant changed the subject. I kept smiling, pretending her words didn't sting. That's what I always did. The night stretched on, and the more I drank, the stranger I felt. My head buzzed in a way that didn't feel normal. The room seemed to tilt a little, sounds stretching and blending together. I looked down at my glass and noticed something strange. A faint, bitter taste that didn't match the wine's sweetness. I set the glass down slowly, my heart beginning to race. When I looked up, Elena was watching me. Her lips curled into a small, knowing smile. Not the kind you share with a sister, but the kind you give when you think you've won something. The air between us felt heavy. In that moment, I didn't say a word. I just held her stare, my fingers trembling slightly around the stem of my glass, and realized something was terribly wrong. The strange feeling in my head got worse. The room swayed as if the floor had turned to water. My vision blurred around the edges, and a wave of nausea hit me hard. I tried to smile and keep my voice steady, but my tongue felt heavy. Something was wrong, very wrong. I mumbled an excuse about needing the bathroom and pushed back my chair. My legs shook as I stood. Elena's eyes followed me as I left the dining room. I could feel her watching, even as I walked down the hallway. Inside the bathroom, I locked the door and leaned against the sink. My face in the mirror didn't look like mine. My skin was pale, my pupils uneven. My heart thudded so fast it hurt. I took deep breaths, but it didn't help. My stomach turned, and I barely made it to the toilet before throwing up. The burning taste in my throat made me gag again and again. When I finally lifted my head, sweat stuck to my neck. I gripped the counter and stared at myself. This wasn't just too much wine. I knew my body. I'd never felt anything like this before. I tried to think, what was different tonight? The wine. Elena had poured it. Every glass, every refill. And that smile she gave me when she thought I wasn't looking. My stomach twisted again, this time not from nausea, but fear. I turned on the faucet, letting the cold water run over my wrists, trying to steady my breath. My thoughts scattered, but one thing came through clear. I couldn't let her see me like this. I rinsed my mouth, wiped my face, and forced myself to look calm. When I stepped out of the bathroom, the sound of laughter floated down the hall, too loud, too fake. I walked back toward the dining room, forcing a small smile. My glass was still there, half full, sitting right next to Grant's. They looked almost identical. My hands were trembling, but I tried to act casual. I laughed at something Tyler said and reached for my drink. Only I didn't pick up mine. I picked up Grant's instead, switching them smoothly, as if by mistake. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone could hear it. I brought the other glass closer to me and set mine where his had been. No one noticed. I sat back down, pretending to listen, pretending everything was normal. A few minutes later, Grant cleared his throat and started coughing. At first it was small, then harder. His face turned pale, a light sheen of sweat appearing on his forehead. Elena's smile vanished. "Grant, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice shaking. He waved a hand, saying he just needed some air, and stood up, stumbling slightly. I didn't move. I just watched as Elena hurried after him. My fingers tightened around the stem of my glass. Inside, I felt sick, scared, and yet a dark calm settled over me. I hadn't planned this, but maybe fate had. Grant got worse that same night. Tyler and I had already gone home when my phone buzzed close to midnight. I ignored it at first, but the next morning, Elena's name lit up my screen again. Her voice was shaky and rushed. "Mara, something's wrong with Grant," she said. "He started throwing up after you left. I had to drive him to urgent care. They think it's food poisoning." I sat there holding the phone to my ear, pretending to sound surprised. "Oh my God, that's awful. Is he okay?" I asked, forcing concern into my voice. "He's still weak, but he's fine now," she said quickly. "It must have been that meat he bought. You didn't get sick, did you?" Her tone made my stomach twist. She was fishing, checking if her little plan had worked. "No," I said softly. "I feel fine." Elena sighed with relief. "Good. I was worried about you too. Last night was a mess." I told her I hoped Grant recovered soon and hung up before my anger slipped through. My hands were shaking, and a strange coldness crept up my spine. Food poisoning. That was her story. But I'd seen the look on her face when I left the table. That wasn't guilt over bad steak. It was panic. Later that afternoon, our mom called. She'd heard about Grant and wanted to make sure everyone was okay. She suggested we all meet at her house that evening. I didn't want to go, but I needed to see Elena's face again. When I arrived, Elena was already there, sitting stiff on the couch. She looked tired, but her makeup was perfect as always. Mom hovered nearby, asking a dozen questions about Grant's health. I sat quietly, watching Elena's hands twist in her lap. She avoided looking at me. Mom went to the kitchen to make tea, and the room fell quiet. I heard their voices through the half-open doorway a few minutes later, low and tense. Mom's voice was soft, worried. "Elena, what really happened last night?" There was a long pause before Elena whispered. "I didn't mean for it to get that bad. It was supposed to be just enough to make her sleep." The words hit me like a slap. My chest tightened, and I froze in place. Mom asked something else, but I didn't hear it. All I could think about was that sentence, playing over and over in my head. My breath came out shaky as I quietly backed away. I grabbed my coat from the chair and slipped out before anyone noticed. Outside, the air was cold, sharp against my face. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the steering wheel, trying to calm my hands. She had really done it. My own sister had tried to drug me. Not hurt me, not yet, but she wanted me unconscious. For what? What could she have planned? The more I thought about it, the darker it felt. Elena's perfect smile, her laughter, her charm. All of it seemed fake now, hiding something poisonous underneath. I couldn't let it go. The more I thought about what Elena had done, the more I needed to know why. She hadn't just tried to make me sleep. There had to be something more behind it. So I started looking for answers quietly, without letting anyone know. I didn't want her to suspect I was onto her. A few days later, I remembered someone who might know more. Her name was Nina. We'd gone to college together, and years ago, she had dated Grant before Elena ever met him. I hadn't spoken to her in a long time, but I decided to call. When she picked up, her voice was warm, surprised to hear from me. I told her I wanted to catch up, and we agreed to meet at a small cafe in town. When I saw her, she looked almost the same as before, kind eyes, easy smile, but when I mentioned Elena's name, her expression hardened. "Your sister?" she said quietly, stirring her coffee. I haven't heard that name in a long time. I told her that Elena and Grant were married now, and Nina gave a small, bitter laugh. "Of course she married him," she said. "Elena always wanted whatever someone else had. Back then, she made it her mission to take everything from me. My friends, my spot in our group, even Grant. It wasn't love for her, it was a game." Her words hit hard. I asked her what she meant, and she told me more stories, small things at first, then worse ones. Elena spreading rumors about people she envied, twisting the truth to get attention, pretending to be kind only when it benefited her. "She's good at pretending," Nina said. "She gets people to trust her. Then she turns it against them." I listened quietly, feeling the pieces click together in my head. The charming sister everyone loved wasn't real. She'd been manipulating people for years. Before we left, I asked Nina if she knew anything about Grant lately. She hesitated, then said she still heard things from mutual friends. Grant had been cheating on Elena for months. He was seeing a woman from work. My heart sank. Maybe Elena had found out. Maybe that's what had pushed her to the edge. But why involve me? Something darker was forming in my mind. What if Elena had wanted to make it look like I had done something to her husband? Maybe she'd planned to pass out next to me and make it seem like I'd crossed a line. The thought made me sick, but it also made too much sense. A week later, I stopped by Elena's house to drop off something our mom had asked me to return. When she went upstairs to take a call, I wandered into the kitchen. Near the trash bin, I noticed a small, empty glass bottle tucked beneath paper towels. I pulled it out and turned it over. The label was torn, but I could still read the words sleep aid on the side. It smelled faintly of alcohol. That was all I needed to see. She had mixed the pills with vodka. This wasn't a mistake or a joke. It was planned. She had thought it through. Driving home, I felt something shift inside me. The fear I'd been carrying turned into something cold and steady. If Elena wanted to play cruel games, then maybe it was time someone taught her what losing felt like. A few days later, Elena called me out of nowhere. Her voice was calm, almost sweet, like nothing strange had ever happened between us. She said she wanted to meet for coffee, to clear the air. I almost laughed at the idea, but I agreed. I wanted to see what she would say when she looked me in the eye. We met at a quiet cafe downtown. She was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window with her usual perfect hair and fake smile. "Mara," she said, standing to hug me. I didn't move, and she quickly sat back down, pretending not to notice. For a few minutes, she tried to talk like everything was normal. She asked about Tyler, my job, our parents, small talk light and meaningless. I let her talk, just watching her. Her hands were restless, fingers tapping the coffee cup again and again. Finally, she sighed and said, "I feel like things have been weird between us lately." I didn't answer. I just looked at her, waiting. She hesitated, then gave a nervous laugh. "I guess I should explain," she said. Her eyes were shiny, but not from guilt, more like someone trying to sell a story. That night, I might have gone too far. I didn't mean for things to get that serious. She took a shaky breath. "I just wanted to teach you a lesson." My chest tightened. "A lesson?" I asked quietly. Her eyes darted away. "You always act like you're the innocent one. The one everyone should feel sorry for. You play the victim, Mara. I wanted to show you how it feels when someone else controls the story." I sat still, my hands wrapped around my cup. "So you drugged me?" I said, my voice low. She flinched but didn't look sorry. "It wasn't like that," she said quickly. "It was just supposed to be a harmless prank. You'd sleep through dinner, maybe wake up embarrassed. That's all. I didn't mean for Grant to get sick. That part wasn't my fault." Her words hung in the air like smoke. She wasn't apologizing, she was defending herself. I realized then that she didn't feel guilt or shame, just annoyance that her plan had gone wrong. I didn't argue. I didn't shout or accuse her. I just nodded slightly and said, "I understand." Elena smiled weakly, relieved, thinking she'd fixed everything. "I knew you'd get it," she said. "We're sisters. We've always been different, but we'll be fine." I watched her gather her things and leave, her heels clicking on the tile, her perfume trailing behind like a ghost of her arrogance. When she was gone, I sat there for a long time, staring at my coffee, feeling the heat fade from the cup and from my hands. That night, as I lay in bed, her words replayed in my mind. She wanted to teach me a lesson. Maybe now it was my turn. Not with anger or shouting, but something quieter, smarter, something she would never forget. After our coffee meeting, I thought I'd feel lighter, but I didn't. The calm smile I'd given Elena had only been the start. I couldn't forget her words. How she said it was a lesson, a prank, like almost poisoning someone with something small. I knew then that she'd never learn unless someone taught her differently. Not long after, I started hearing whispers from family and friends. Grant wasn't staying at home much. He'd been working late, spending nights at his brother's house. People said he looked tired, like a man trying to escape his own life. I didn't ask questions at first, but I listened. When the chance came, I made sure to run into him at the grocery store one evening. He looked surprised to see me, then awkward. "Hey, Mara," he said. "How's Tyler?" "Good," I answered with a polite smile. "How's Elena?" He sighed and rubbed his neck. "She's fine, I guess. Things have been strange since that night. I don't know what's going on with her." That was my moment. I tilted my head as if thinking. "I noticed she seemed off lately," I said softly. "Tired, nervous." I worry she's been taking something to help her sleep. She mentioned it once, but maybe I misunderstood. Grant's eyebrows drew together. Really? I nodded. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. I'm probably overthinking it. Then I smiled gently, as if I regretted speaking at all. It was enough. I could see the doubt start forming in his eyes. That was all I needed. Over the next few days, I made sure to stay visible, sending Elena short, friendly texts, asking how she was doing. She replied less and less, her answers clipped. Grant, on the other hand, called me once to ask if I'd noticed Elena behaving strangely before the dinner. I told him she'd seemed distracted, maybe stressed. She said she wasn't sleeping well. I added carefully. I hope she's taking care of herself. Every word I said was technically true. I didn't need to lie. I just gave the truth a little push in the direction it wanted to go. Weeks passed, and Elena started showing cracks. Mom mentioned that Elena had snapped at her on the phone. A friend of hers told me Elena had broken down crying at a brunch, accusing people of turning against her. The mask she'd always worn, the calm, perfect version of herself, was slipping. She called me one night, her voice trembling. "Did you tell Grant something about me?" I kept my tone soft and confused. "What do you mean?" "He's been asking questions," she said sharply. "About medicine, about sleeping pills." I never said anything to him. "Oh, Elena," I said gently. "I might have mentioned something by accident. I didn't mean to. I was just worried about you." She didn't reply for a moment, then hung up without saying goodbye. After that, I noticed she started avoiding me in public. When our family met for dinner one weekend, she barely looked my way. Her hands trembled as she poured herself a drink, and she spoke too fast, trying to sound composed. Grant sat beside her, quiet, his eyes distant. I smiled at her across the table the same way she used to smile at me. Sweet, patient, and just a little pitying. I didn't need to raise my voice or expose her secrets. She was doing that all on her own. It didn't take long for things to fall apart completely. A week after our last awkward family dinner, I got a text from Grant asking if we could talk. We met at a small park near his office. He looked exhausted, his eyes red, his voice low. "I can't live like this anymore," he said quietly. "I don't know who she is anymore." I listened, pretending to be surprised, but I knew exactly what was coming. He told me that he'd confronted Elena the night before. I asked her what really happened that night I got sick, he said. She swore it was food poisoning, but something in her voice. He stopped, shaking his head. Then I remembered you said she'd been stressed that week, maybe not sleeping. He looked at me carefully. Was she taking something back then? Something to help her relax? I didn't answer right away. I just gave him a sad, careful look. "Grant, I don't know everything," I said softly. "But I do think Elena's been struggling more than she admits. Maybe she needs help." He ran a hand through his hair and sighed. "That's what scares me. I don't feel safe anymore. I think she's hiding something." Later that evening, Elena called me, her voice shaky. "Grant left," she said, trying to hold back tears. "He packed a bag and went to a hotel. He thinks I did something to him on purpose." "Did you tell him something?" I paused before answering. "He reached out to me," I said gently. "He just seemed worried. Maybe he misunderstood." Her voice cracked. "He said I scared him, Mara. My own husband." She started sobbing, the sound raw and desperate. I could almost picture her sitting on the kitchen floor, her perfect world falling apart around her. I waited a few moments before I spoke. "Elena, maybe this is your chance to think about what you've done. Sometimes, when you play with people's trust, it comes back to you in ways you don't expect." She sniffled loudly. "I didn't do anything wrong. He's twisting things." Her voice rose, sharp and defensive, then broke again. "I just wanted him to love me. I wanted people to see me as perfect, not crazy." I let her cry until her voice turned into quiet hiccups. Then I said softly, "You shouldn't give people something they can choke on." There was silence on the other end. I could almost feel her trying to understand what I meant. Then slowly she whispered, "You switched the glasses." I didn't answer. I just listened to her breathing grow uneven, to the sound of realization sinking in. "Mara," she said weakly. You let him drink it." Still, I said nothing. I only whispered, "Take care of yourself," and hung up. For a long moment, I sat in the dark, phone in my hand, listening to the quiet hum of the night outside. Elena finally knew. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one trembling. She was. A few days later, everything started to unravel faster than I expected. Grant went back to the house one morning to grab some of his things. Elena had been calling him nonstop, begging him to talk, promising that she could explain. He finally agreed to meet her, mostly out of guilt, but what he found there ended any chance she had left. Behind the bar in their living room, he noticed a small glass bottle tucked behind the liquor shelf. It looked out of place, half hidden, half empty. The label was clear enough: prescription sleep medication, with Elena's name printed right across it. Grant told me later that his hands were shaking when he picked it up. He opened the cap and smelled it. There was vodka inside. That was all the proof he needed. He didn't yell or throw things. He just walked out, bottle in hand, and drove straight to his lawyer's office. That evening, Elena showed up at my house, mascara streaked down her cheeks, voice breaking. "He's leaving me," she said, pacing back and forth. "He's telling people I poisoned him. Can you believe that? He's saying I'm dangerous." I stood in the doorway, watching her. "Why would he say that?" I asked quietly. She turned on me, eyes wild. "Because someone put ideas in his head. He said he found a bottle. I don't even know what he's talking about." Her lies sounded weaker now, more desperate. I didn't respond. I just let her keep talking until her words started tripping over each other. When she realized I wasn't arguing back, she froze, her face hardening. "You knew about this, didn't you?" she whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Within a week, the news spread through our family. Grant filed for divorce and told our parents everything. He showed them the bottle, explained how he'd gotten sick, and how Elena had been acting for months. Mom cried for hours. Dad refused to speak to her. They both believed Grant, of course they did. He was calm, reasonable, and he had proof. Elena tried to call me again and again, but I let every call go to voicemail. I knew what she'd say, how it was all a misunderstanding, how she'd been under pressure, how everyone had turned on her unfairly. She'd say anything to make herself the victim again. Friends started avoiding her. The neighbors whispered. People who used to admire her stopped inviting her places. She'd built her whole life around looking perfect, and now that image had cracked wide open. When Mom told me Elena had moved out of her house and was staying in a small apartment downtown, I only nodded. I didn't feel happy exactly, but there was a quiet calm inside me, like the storm that had been raging for years had finally ended. That night, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, thinking about everything that had happened. I hadn't lied, not once. I hadn't needed to. The truth had done all the work for me. Elena had spent her life taking things that weren't hers: attention, love, credit, even trust. And now, for the first time, she had nothing left to take. I didn't celebrate, I didn't gloat, but I did let myself smile. The balance had finally shifted. It was late when the knock came. I almost didn't answer. The sound was uneven, loud, and desperate. When I opened the door, Elena was standing there, swaying slightly, her eyes glassy and red. She smelled like wine and something bitter underneath it. Her hair was a mess, her lipstick smudged, her whole perfect image gone. "You happy now?" she slurred, pushing past me into the living room. "You got what you wanted, didn't you?" I closed the door quietly and turned to her. "Elena, you need to go home." She laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "Home? You mean the apartment I can barely afford? The one I live in because my husband left me and everyone thinks I'm crazy." She looked around the room, sneering. "You always wanted this. You wanted to see me fall." I crossed my arms, trying to stay calm. "I didn't want this, Elena. You did it to yourself." Her head snapped toward me. "No," she hissed. "You ruined me. You whispered things, didn't you? You turned Grant against me. You told him lies." "I didn't have to," I said softly. "He found the truth on his own." She shook her head, tears welling up. "You think you're better than me. You always have. You play the quiet, innocent one, but you've always been jealous. You couldn't stand that people liked me more." Something in me snapped. "Jealous?" I said, my voice rising. "You tried to drug me, Elena. You could have killed me. And for what? To prove you were better? To humiliate me?" She froze, her mouth opening but no words coming out. The silence stretched until she finally muttered, "I didn't mean for it to go that far." I took a step closer. "You never mean it, do you? You hurt people and then act like it's nothing. You lie and cry and make excuses, and everyone forgives you because you're the charming one. Well, not this time." Her breathing turned sharp and uneven. "You think you're innocent? You switched the glasses. You let him drink it," she shouted. We stood there staring at each other. I didn't deny it. Her eyes went wide, her face twisting between anger and guilt. "You wanted revenge," she said, voice trembling. "You wanted me to suffer." "Maybe," I said quietly. "Maybe I just wanted you to stop." She stumbled forward and shoved me, not hard, but enough to make me step back. "You don't get to act like the victim anymore," she yelled. I pushed her hands away. "I stopped being the victim the night you tried to poison me." Her anger broke then. She let out a sob, collapsing onto the floor, her body shaking. "I didn't mean to hurt you that badly," she cried. "I just wanted you to know what it felt like to lose control." I stood over her, watching her crumble, the woman who had once been so sure of herself reduced to tears on my living room floor. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from something heavier, release. For years, she had taken my peace, my confidence, my trust. And now, standing there, I felt it all come back. Quietly, I turned away, letting her sobs echo through the room. Weeks passed after Elena left town, and life finally started to feel calm again. The house was quiet, almost too quiet at first, but I began to enjoy it. I could breathe without waiting for another fight, another phone call, or another secret falling apart. Nobody said where Elena went exactly, only that she'd packed her car and driven off one morning. Mom told me she'd moved to another state to stay with an old friend. I didn't ask for more details. I didn't want to know. Sometimes I caught myself wondering what she was doing, whether she'd started over or was still blaming everyone else for how things turned out. A small part of me still felt sorry for her, but I knew feeling guilty wouldn't change anything. She'd made her choices. We all had. A few weeks later, I got a call from Grant. When I saw his name on the screen, my stomach tightened. I thought about ignoring it, but something in me said to pick up. His voice was calm but tired. "Mara," he said, "I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry." I stayed quiet for a moment. "You don't have to apologize," I said. "None of this was your fault." He sighed softly. "I should have seen what was going on. I should have believed you. I just wanted peace, and I looked the other way." I could hear the guilt in his voice, and for the first time, I didn't feel angry about it. "We all just wanted things to be normal," I told him. But nothing about that was normal. He was quiet for a second, then said, "You're stronger than you think, Mara. I hope you know that." When the call ended, I sat on the porch and watched the sun sink behind the trees. The sky was soft orange, the air cool and still. For the first time in a long time, I felt steady. I wasn't happy exactly, but I was at peace. I still thought about Grant sometimes, about how he paid the price for what Elena did. That guilt sat heavy in my chest. But I also knew it wasn't mine to carry alone. Elena had built her world on lies, and that world finally came crashing down. Maybe it had to. Mom and Dad still mentioned her from time to time. They said they hoped she was okay, that maybe one day she'd come back different. I never said much. I'd learned that silence was sometimes the only answer. One evening, I opened my journal and tried to put everything I felt into words. It wasn't anger anymore, just understanding. I wrote, "Maybe revenge doesn't fix what's broken, but sometimes it stops the person who keeps breaking you." When I closed the notebook, I felt something inside me finally settle. For the first time in years, I slept through the night without dreaming of her.